Hi guys, it's Pam here. I just want to briefly go over with you what it's like to get a new Eco server and what you need to do to get up and running and get going good without any problems. When you get your login or get your confirmation mail that your server has been built, it will give you a login name. This is just one that it gave me, but it's usually your first name, your first name and your last initial, and it'll give you a password. And this will be different than the username and password that you used when you bought the server. That's on the store website. This is the game panel, and it does give you a different login and password over here. So let's make sure I remembered my password correctly. I did. And this is what your game panel is going to look like when you log in. Not much, right? What you're going to want to do is go to Game Services, because that's where your games are. And this is what we refer to as your main game panel. This is where your major control station is. Now, just to fill you in on the side here just a little bit so you know really quickly, if you have a problem, need to get support, go here for a support, go here and check on support tickets there. You can open up a new ticket here. Let us know what the problem is. Please remember when you do this, if you would, always drop down on that related service and click on it. It really helps us to know, to be able to get to your server fast. If that's in the heading, when we get the ticket, we can click right on it and go right to your server, and we don't have to go hunting you. But if you like to keep us busy, you can leave it out and then we'll go hunt you. If you have friends that you want to help run the server, you can create a sub-user, give them access levels, and come out here what permissions you can give them, whether you want them to have any support permissions, that sort of thing. And then this will show you here a link, a list of your sub-users after you make them. And then you can have somebody else help you run the server, in other words. And there's your profile and your account security. But let's go back to the main important part. Everybody wants to know how to run their server. When you first get your server, if you've ever had hosted servers before, usually your servers are built and up and running and ready for you to log in and go. Not so with Eco, and the reason why is because as soon as Eco starts running, it builds your world. And your server's not fully configured yet, and may have things that you want to change. And so we don't start it building right away. We leave it stopped so you can come into your configuration files and configure things. Something very important about the configuration files. We have built a configuration. We have a configuration editor that we use, and we have built configuration files. So you have a really nice editor to use to help you put in all the right things for each file without causing problems. You can get to the text editor if you need to. If you want to edit in text, you can. But we suggest that you use the configuration editor, and every time you do an update, whether you change anything or not, if you put in new server code, or new code comes into the server, you put in an update or whatever, open up your configuration editor and save the file. That saves a fresh copy of the configuration file to the server, and then when it loads up, it's loading up the correct configurations. These are basically, I'm going to run through them real quick. These are all the different configurations you set for Eco. This, of course, is self-explanatory. This is your backup. We suggest, and we start you out with 12 backups a day, every 2 hours. And so that pretty much saves 24 hours worth of backups for you. And they save to the backup directory, and then what you can do is set it up so that you back those up and take those 24 hours worth of backups and put them into a daily file, and then save the daily file off elsewhere. It'll save it off for you so that if something happens while you're installing or whatever, you won't lose everything. You'll always have backups to go to. So check your file out. Not going to change anything, but we still want you to save it so that you get a fresh file. This is your difficulty. Difficulty is kind of interesting. We have the defaults for each level of difficulty here, so you could pick them and set them. But we do it this way. So say you want low collaboration for 5 or 8 people. That would be 5 and 6. Have the cost, specialty cost multiplier would be 6. That's the default. But say you go, no, I really want it to cost my people more, or I really want it to cost my people less, or I really want the refund rate to be higher, then you can adjust this the way you want to. This setting here, it allows them whether or not you want them to be able to unlearn a skill, or whether once they learn it, they're stuck with it and they can't unlearn it. Of course, this is your disaster setting. Now, this is already set for you because you filled this out when you brought the server. But here you can change it if you want before you build the world. Now, once you build the world, your disaster is set. If you want to change your disaster, it's going to take either a lot of editing or a rebuild of a world. But you can fiddle with this the way you want before your first build. And we'll go ahead and save that. This is Discord. Discord is pretty much not any impact right now. It's not fully implemented, so just so it doesn't cause any crashes, leave it set to no. Now this is your simulation. EcoSim is your simulation file, and it's a very, very complex file. Everything in it can be edited, from your seed growth to capacity of the layers, to the layer names, to what they do. It's mind-boggling what you can change in here. You can totally control the world, from where the birds fly, to how many rabbits spawn, to how many blades of grass grows. But for the usual default user, the only settings that are of any real major consequence are these little group of settings at the very end of the file. Things like now mine have already been edited here because I changed them. I up the plant density to 3, I up the skill gain rate to 3, the base skill rate I push up to 20 from 12, and I up my max housing skill rate to 100. But you can leave it at default, you can edit it to your heart's desire. These are most of these are also you can edit from in-game. So if you don't change them now, but then you're in-game and somebody's going, oh, it's just too slow to gain skills, you can just use, and I will show you how you can get those commands to edit it from in-game, and I'll show you that in a little bit. Okay, this is the mod kit. If you're going to be doing modding, you want the mod kit on, then you are probably going to want it whitelist enabled, so you'd change that to yes, and then you would use your SLG ID or your Steam ID and whoever else you wanted to have access to it, and put their IDs in there. And this is a very important file. This is your network file. This is where the name of your world is. You can use color codes in there. If you want this to be a public server, if you want it to show up on the web browser, you're going to check here. Your server can be whitelisted. It can have a password. It can have both. It can have neither. It's up to you. But this is where your password would go. This is detect NAT. Leave it checked. False. You're on a hosted system. We handle things like port forwarding and all that. You don't need to game to do that for you. This is for people setting up at home that want the game to forward their ports to the firewall and that sort of thing. If you turn it on, you turn it on. It's probably not going to hurt anything, but it will throw a couple of errors because our equipment goes, no, you can't change the ports. We already do that. This is the profanity file. I will let you see it. It's probably got every bad word you can ever think of in there. It's a huge file. You can add to it. You can get rid of words you want to let your people use, whatever. But that's for the profanity filter. This is the room setting. The only thing that's important in it right now, and the only thing that's in it, is if people leave a 1x1 block in a wall, is that considered a window? Or do they have to really put a window in there? If they have to really put a window in there, then you're going to turn it to no. If just leaving a 1x1 hole in the wall is a window, then say yes. This is about your storage. This takes care of... Now this, don't get this confused with backups. This is a little bit different. This is the storage of your live world. Your live world is called game.eco. Oops, excuse me, my dog's huffing and puffing in the background. It's called game.eco. And we recommend that you set it to save every 30 to 60 minutes. So it'll save out of memory every 30 to 60 minutes. And you can pick the compression. If you think your world's kind of big and it's not saving as fast, it's causing some lag, you can adjust this. And this is just if you wanted to clean up the files when if it throws an exception, do you want it to clean up the files or not? I usually leave it no, because I want to leave all the exception violation files in there so I can see what's going on and send them off to the devs. But if you don't want a whole bunch of them collecting in your dump folder, then just say yes, and every time it hits a new exception, it'll clean up the old ones. And yet again, another important access file. This is your user configuration. This is where you deal with the users on your server. At the very top, you're going to be asked private server. This is no longer used in the 7.0 beta, which is most of what you guys are going to have here on out. I'm doing this after 7.03 is released, so I don't think you're going to be running any of the 6.0 alphas. But it's there for the people still running those versions. It'll go away pretty soon and you won't even see it there. Up to you whether you want to allow debug calls on your server or not. Most people leave that off unless the devs are helping them troubleshoot something and they need it turned on. And then the devs will ask them to turn it on, and they will, and they'll run a save and they'll be able to get that. Use waste. This has to do with waste and pollution in the game. It's only partially implemented. Most people leave it turned off, but that is totally up to you. Everyone that gets an eco server from Kill Servers has a maximum of 100 slots, but if you don't want 100 people invading your server, you can turn it to however many slots you want. This is your spawn location, sea level, and the coordinates 500 by 500. You can change it to wherever you want. If it turns out in your world 500 by 500 ends up in the middle of the water or on the top of a mountain where somebody else wants to build or whatever, change it to where's a good spawn location. Or say you build a town and you decide after a week, I really want people spawning here in town where they can see the board and our notices and all of that. And so you find a good good set of chords, and you change your spawn so that people spawn right near the town. This is kind of important. If you check this, all the players are going to spawn in the exact block that you denote here. That means if you spawn in and you don't move off that block and somebody else spawns in right after you, they're going to be standing right on top of you. If somebody gets mean and builds a little house or a corral or whatever right on spawn, you're gonna log in and be stuck on a roof or in a gate or something. if you leave it unchecked, the game will check and say, is anybody or anything there that's in the way? If so, I will spawn you a little bit to the right, or a little bit to the left, or a little bit north, or a little bit south. And so there won't be an obstacle in your way. If you check it, however, your people are spawning right dead on where you say. Okay. I already added myself as an admin here. To add an admin, you just click. It brings up a box. You add in whatever their number is. Now, you can use Steam ID, SL, or SLG IDs. If you're only on Steam, you're going to want to use Steam IDs. If you're only on Eco, the Eco Local, you're going to want to use SLG. If you're on both, if you're linked, you're going to want to use the SLG IDs. You can find this in your account, on your account page on the Eco website. If you want to get rid of an admin, you just click delete player and they go away. Player whitelist is the same thing. Click on it. You can add your friends or family or whatever, their IDs. You want to blacklist somebody, which is banning them permanently or until you remove them. Same thing, by their ID. Now, once you change a lot of these files, you have to restart the server for it to take effect, because it has to read these files in. But most files are noted, whether you can change it on the fly or not. Next is just a very small configuration file. It's a file that's going to eventually deal with all the different atmospheres that you can have in the world, but right now there's just a default one, and so that's it. And this is your world generator. This also doesn't have a configuration editor, and that's because it's pretty complex. You can edit this, but it's scary. The only thing you probably would ever get around to doing much is changing the dimensions. If you wanted a world a little bit larger than the default, the worlds have to be divisible by 4. The recommended ones are 72 by 72, of course. It's a good sized world. It'll play a fair amount of people. It builds fast. It loads quickly. So 100 by 100 is also fair, and it works pretty well. What we consider a double-sized world is 140 by 140, and it is a little slower to build, a little slower to load, but it's not unstable. You get up to the triple-sized world, which is 174 by 174. It's notoriously just been an unstable size for a world. But if you want to give it a try, go ahead. And then the largest recommended size is a 4 times or a quad world, which is 200 by 200. Going to take a while to build out. You're going to have to be patient. And it will take a long time every time you restart it to load. And it will take a long time on updates because it's a big world to migrate. But again, that's up to you. And to change the dimension size, you just click on it and type in the dimension size. And then save it. And the very last file are your world objects. These just talk about ticks and parallel ticks. Most part, you don't want parallel ticks running, and leave your target ticks at 0, and you're fine. There probably will be a lot of uses for that later on, but not right now. Okay. Now you can go back to your main game panel. All your configuration files have been opened and checked and saved, and that's good. Now, one thing we offer all of our server owners is a mod manager, in which we put in mods that we have tested, that we have either commissioned, worked with moderators to, or modders to do, or at least tested so we know that they're safe in your worlds. We do recommend that you use this one mod. It's by Production, and it is the Admin Utils. It gives you a lot of in-game, on-the-fly admin utilities, from everything from unclaiming, say somebody comes on and claims a whole bunch of land and leaves and never comes back. As the admin, you can go around to spot to spot to spot, picking up his claim, or you can just go to one spot, find out what his name is, and unclaim all player name, and it all goes away at once, and you're not spending an hour picking up all his claims. He gives you a in-game backup, in-game save, export stats, item list. You can export the chat log. You can change a lot of this, change things like skill rates, damage multipliers, all sorts of things like that. It's a really handy mod to have. It's very helpful. And we usually suggest that you install this one. And that is how you install it. You just click on install and it installs. It'll give you a little information about how to delete the mod if that time comes that you want to get rid of it. And then you can go back to your main game panel. Just to let you know what a couple other things are here. I'm not sure why updates is here. That's going away, so just ignore that. Here's a link to the Wikipedia. Here's a link to Steam 64 ID lookup if you want to look up somebody's Steam ID to put in your user directory or admin links or whatever. You need to come to our Discord. Here's a link here. The Eco Support Discord is right here. Now, say you're tired of your world. You want to start over. That's what this link is here. It'll go in. It'll back up the world that you presently have. So it's not a quick reset, but it backs up your whole world, backs up to all your backups, backs up all your configuration files, and then deletes your world. And then you're fresh to start. Anytime you want to do a backup from out here on the game panel, you can click that, and it can be run while the server's running. So just click it. If you want to check your current folders, your server, all your game folders, all your important things, this is how you go to your file manager. Now, we're currently not using Steam Update, and the reason we're not using Steam Update is, one, there's a delay between Strange Loop games push to Steam, and the method that we've been using for quite a year or more or longer lets us get the files almost the minute they come out from Strange Loop games. The other thing is that we can provide you with access to every file, whether it's staging, whether you want to roll back to an older version, it doesn't matter. The process we have allows you to do that. And with Steam, if you click Steam Update, all you get is the most current version. Just to tell you, there's a little hidden secret in the Actions tab here. If you click on it, you'll see this little link here. It says Update Eco Version List. If for some reason, you'll see what I mean. If you go to the Eco Updater and your version isn't in there, you come here and click that, and that's going to open up a quick little process that is going to run and update that list. And then what happens is, in the updater, you come in here and you will see all the files. So we're already on this one, but if, say, 7.04 was out, you'd find it in the drop down, and you click on it and click execute, and it would do a clean so it won't blow away your world, but it will give you all clean files, and you'll be good to go. That's how you update. We do recommend that before doing an update, you go in and uninstall any mod. You're going to want to install it again. And the one last thing to show you is scheduled tasks. And this is where you can come in, and there are several tasks you can do. And you can do a scheduled restart. The other one that's good is backup game files. I would do backup game files once a day at a time. Doesn't really matter whenever it's good for you. A lot of people do it around 1 o'clock in the morning, so it just gets done the same time every day. What this backup does is it looks in the storage/backup folder that the game maintains, and it looks at all the backups in there for the day. The game only saves backups for 24 hours. So it looks in there, it zips up all those backups and then saves them off to a different backup directory separate from the game, so that every day you're getting a backup of all the backups from the day. And that's just a really extra safety mechanism. Something happened and there was a big mess when you were doing an update or something and you lost everything. The one thing you wouldn't lose is this backup folder, because it's outside of the server, and you would end up with, you would still be able to get your world back, at least within about an hour of, the most you're going to lose is an hour. And then I said you could do a scheduled restart too. Right here, you just go in, and both of these are pretty much the same. They come in, they tell you to give the job a name, enable it, pick whether you want it to happen one time or daily, what time you want it to happen. If you want it to happen more than once a day but daily, you can do a repeat task and tell it to repeat every 12 hours or 24. But for both of these things on Eco, usually once a day is great. The advanced option tabs are like for a restart. You want the server to restart at 6 o'clock every morning. Eco gets a little laggy when it runs for 24 hours, so you might want to do that. And the important part here is if it finds people on the server, do you want it to go ahead and restart, or do you want it to wait until it's empty? Or do you want it to just skip the restart? You can pick to choose what you want to do there. And that's pretty much your game server and getting set up on your game server. And at that point, you are ready to push the start button and go and let your world build. And it'll take off here in just a second. You'll see it start using some CPU. And at least I think it's going to use some CPU. Or is it going to be a problem? No? I don't think so. There we go. Well, anyway, while it's building up, I am going to let you go, and we will talk with you later. If you have any problems, please feel free to drop us a support ticket or get a hold of us on Discord. And I'm in the Eco Discord a lot too, and you can get me there, and we will be very happy to help you. And thank you for watching the video. Bye bye.